Ayo, angels around. This is still Teacher Kimi of Kimipedia offering you sample research titles for your successful qualitative research or practical research one. So it's already, I think it's already 9 p.m. and I am still trying to record this for the benefit. It's already past 9. So I started recording at 7 p.m. and I'm not yet finished. I have to redo some of those recorded, but this one is the third installment, and we are going to focus now on culture. Culture is being studied particularly in anthropology, but there are so many parts of social sciences that takes into consideration studying culture. Culture is the ways of living of people. And number one on my list, without further ado, is the local stories in barangay, whatever barangay you are in right now. So your product would be the group of stories or series of stories. You can create actually books about stories on your locality. So you may have these stories published after that, or you may just publish it for your barangay or for your municipality so that they would know that your locality has actually colorful stories where you can learn valuable things from. So we have in here local stories. For example, the title would be Mga Istoryang Lokal sa Rawis Libon. So this title is in Bicol. So you can actually turn your title into Bicol and describe it in English if you may, or in describe it in English, then your results would be translated into different vernaculars that you have. If you have several vernaculars, provincial vernacular or municipality vernacular or a barangay vernacular, you can of course create those stories using various vernaculars. You can create those stories using Filipino language and of course in English, so that it may be available also to the other people outside of our country, so they may be able to understand how colorful our culture is. Specific I have in here, for example, if you want to just create to focus on a certain local story, doing an ethnographic research about that story and the different people, you will be interviewing different people who have been in connection, who have experienced, who have knowledge, who were in contact with this particular story. So you can do that. For example, the Uyug sa Matibo, ethnographic research on the elementals in the mangrove forest of Rawis, Libon, Albay, if they have. But I don't really have this. I haven't really heard about those elementals living in the mangrove forest of Rawis, but I'm just making up things so that you may be able to get inspired about research topics. So this is a specific research topic, but starting with this title is quite big already, and you can write several to only few or several stories, or you can just focus on writing one longer story that is very much relevant to the community where you are in. Now, aside from that, you also have in here sa Kalesa ni Santiago, the Catholic story of Rawis Apud Libon. Or this particular story is a story in Barangay Rawis where people are saying that there is this type of vision that happens whenever Santiago, which is a patron saint of whole municipality of Libon and of Barangay Apod, would go to the local chapel of Barangay Rawis, and Santiago would fetch San Vicente and they would go somewhere else. I don't know the story anymore, but it's like a vision. Santiago is in a kalesa, in a carriage with horse. That is a kalesa, a carriage with horse pulling it. So that is a very nice story. It talks about the religious affinity between Barangay Apod and Barangay Rawi. So I would like one of my students to create that, but this just comes up these days when I was thinking about very good topics that everyone can actually do. So just be inspired with the titles that I have in here so you can apply it with your own research titles. I also have in here local viands and dishes of the coastal Libon. So each coastal area would have different taste. Each coastal area have different types of animals that you can eat. So they have different types of habitats and different types of animals who are inhabiting these habitats, and some of these animals can be a good source of meat. So in coastal barangays of Libon, I have heard several dishes that I have also tasted, and they were very, very good. So I just, one of my students, one of the groups among my students created this type of research the last time, but they were not really able to produce a very good product. So a product of this is of course a cookbook. The product would be a cookbook, a list of local viands and dishes and how to cook them, and the different ways of cooking them, and how we will be starting the story. Of course, in each cookbook, it will not be just a simple cookbook, but it will also include about discussing the main ingredients of that particular dishes. Where do they get those products, those raw materials, and how do they process these raw materials before actually cooking. Okay, so I have in here a title that you can use. For example, in this case, Siram ning Dagat. So the title is Siram ning Dagat. That is tutuldok, of course, the local viands and dishes of the coastal Libon. Or if you live in other coastal areas, you may actually do this type of research. This is also related with environment. I'm very, very sorry I haven't included it in the environment area, but I think that is also considering the environment that you have. Although my focus here is about culture. Now we also have my number 3 in here is the Uyog stories in Barangay Apod. So I have one group among my students create this last time. So what are the Uyog stories? Uyog stories are the what do you call this? The hunting. The stories by which a person or several persons are being hunted by spirits or by ghosts, things like that, and you call that uyog. Kaya na uyog si ngoni kade. So you say that in our common term, that is uyog. I do not even know the uyog before I went to the barangay, but I we're just uh 60 peso away from that coastal area, and I do not know the term uyog. So I only know nasi no or nasibang. And these things, the nasi no and the nasibang, naumangan, are things you can still further study about the local folks' belief about it, or the experiences of people who have gone through being nasi no or nasibang or Nomangan. Those can be very nice cultural products that you can create, or you can actually create stories out of those experiences of people about Uyug, about Sino, about Sibang, and about Naumangan, or whatever things you call that. Next, we also have in here number 4, the folk healers of Barangay Apod. So this title, the folk healers of Barangay Apod, is the topic that I had with my children when we competed at the municipal level. So there are 13 schools that competed during municipal level research convention. I'm not even sure if I should call it a research convention. And my children, Sean, Marby, and Hazel, presented the folk healers of Barangay Apud, and they won third prize surprisingly. After the first placer is a scientific endeavor on how to use a certain type of fish and get fish oil from that fish. That is scientific. And the second placer is a research on how to cook a certain product in a varied way. So I'm not a puto, a different type of puto. So we you have many types of researches, and still we won the third place, and I'm really proud about it because my children were very active during the presentation. I also have in here, specific title for these folk healers, Nasi Bang or Nasi Ino, the lived experiences of teenagers healed by the folk healers of Barangay Apod. So that is another take, another type of research by which your focus now is, your key informants would be now the teenagers who were healed by the folk healers of Barangay Apod. We also have number 5, the Tales of Apo Wang-od. So I really would like to know the Tales of Apo Wang-od. Although I have read, excuse me, I have read several papers during my stay in Buscalan. In our homestay, we have these produced materials, readers, that books, reference materials published that talks about the story of Apo Wang-od and the story of other tattooed women in Kalinga. But I would like to hear real stories or real tales coming directly from Apo Wang-od. He is now 103 years old. So if you are someone, this is a shout out to all those people who are living in Buscalan, senior high school students who are living in Buscalan. Ask for details. Your tribe is very colorful. The ways of living that you have is very primitive. Is something that we do not have anymore in these days. So we want to learn what are the experiences of your people. Apo Wang-od is your elder, am I right? And she has experienced many things. She has learned valuable lessons, and she has stories to tell. So get all of that stories that she can tell you about her travels, because Apo Wang-od is actually a traveling tattoo artist. He travels all around the Kalinga. He traverses the mountainous areas just to provide services as tattoo artist. So that is a colorful life, and we would like to hear from her. For example, if you are someone in Buscalan or in Kalinga, just if you would like to focus on a certain tattoo like this. So I have a tattoo here. So if you would like to focus on a certain type of tattoo pattern, I would like you to develop this tale regarding the centipede. You can actually create an epic regarding the centipede, or what is your local term about the centipede? I would like to know that. I would like you to create a story, an epic story regarding how the centipede helped the Buscalanon warrior to kill their their enemies, to kill the monsters. So these are stories that we need, we want, and we should be dealing with to be able for us to continue on honing our own culture and providing color to the culture that we once have and the culture that we still have these days. So aside from the tales of Apo Wang-od, those are other topics that you can actually do. At the very last part of this series regarding culture, I have in here Bubo, the other baptismal rites in the west coast of Albay. So I heard about this type of tradition when a certain group of people would come at the house of someone who have just gave birth to a baby, and they will be doing bubo. Bubo is a term in our in Bicol, which means you pour water into something, you make bubo on something. But bubo is actually another term for a baptismal rite being done not in the churches. So I would like to see glimpse about this bubo. Why are they doing bubo? Why are they conducting bubo or this baptismal rite at just the houses when these things should be done somewhere in a religious place? So that would be a very good topic for my students here. But if you have other tradition from where you are, kung nasaan ka man sa Pilipinas, if you have other traditions that you think are worth your time and worth writing about, worth creating a book about, worth creating a write-up about, worth worth learning deeply about, then go for it. Search these traditions and culture and map them out and write them up and share them to the rest of the world. Again, thank you so much. May I just give you a rundown of the the topics that I have discussed: local stories, mga istoryang lokal, suuyog sa matibo, that is Bicol term, sa kalesa ni Santiago, local viands and dishes of the coastal libon, siram ning dagat or sarap ng dagat, the uyog stories in Barangay Apod, folk healers, the tales of Apo Wangud, and of course the bubo, the other baptismal rite in the west coast of Albay. So if you have any question, just drop it down at the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share the knowledge that you have that there is this teacher in YouTube who is trying to give research titles and inspire you to write your own qualitative, beautiful qualitative research. Please tell them and ask them to also watch so that they can learn this particular. If you start sharing your knowledge about these things, and you can actually teach also your classmates on the research titles that they can have. You can already start writing the research topics that you think are very significant and relevant to the community that you are in right now. If at this point you think you can already, then give it to your classmates. Try to help them also create a mindset of being helped, because being helped is a start. Being helped by other people is a start by which a certain people feels that he also has a responsibility to help other people in his or her community or society. So angels around everyone, thank you so much for listening. This has been teacher Kimi of Kimipedia, and good night.